skupine MED9, neformalni povezavi podobno mislečih sredozemskih držav članic EU. K besedi vabim gostitelja vrha, predsednika vlade Republike Slovenije, dr. Roberta Goloba.
Welcome my dear colleagues and friends from MED9 here in Portorož. Dear Manuel, dear Nikos, dear Andrei, dear Pedro, dear Kyriakos, dear Robert, dear Luis, and dear Antonio. Thank you very much for coming here. I'm also very honored to have two distinguished guests that joined us today, King Abdullah of Jordan and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and who accepted my invitation to this summit. The summit was of two parts. In the first part, we discussed together with the European Commission President the very pressing issue of competitiveness of European industries, a topic which was recognized by very important study and report by Mario Draghi last year, and that is crucial in order to, if we want to maintain our social welfare and prosperity in the future. There are many topics when it comes to competitiveness, but to summarize, the bridging the innovation gap is something that we shall start working upon immediately by heavily investing in research and technology, but even more so in appropriate ecosystem in order to support the innovation coming from research to the economy. We also address the pressing issue of the energy infrastructure, but even more so importantly, the energy prices. Still, going green, through the green transition and investing in renewables seem as the most viable way forward in order to secure both. Secure the independence and autonomy, European autonomy, but also lower prices. We also addressed the issue of green transition, decarbonizing our industry, but we are also advocating for a more flexible approach by sector, with specific and special attention paid to the automotive industry in order to promote further developments in the industry. Later on, we discussed also the initial proposal by the Commission on the multi-annual budget of European Union, the so-called MFF. The discussions, which will start in December, will be long and arduous, but the common position is that we need to increase the funds, because otherwise we will not be able to follow the strategic objectives that we are placing upon European institutions. Having said that, the proposal set as by the Commission was largely approved by today's discussion, and we're looking forward to continue these discussions in the following weeks. Later, during lunch, we were joined by King Abdullah of Jordan, and we discussed the very dramatic situation in the Middle East, specifically in Gaza, but also in West Bank. And initially, I would like to say that we fully recognize the stabilizing role that Jordan is playing in the region. Jordan has our full support, not just for the present, but also for the future developments. And together with Jordan, Europe would like to be even more active in the region. Secondly, we all approve of the recent ceasefire and the ceasefire plus the Sharm el-Sheikh plan for peace as presented by United States President Donald Trump. However, we would like to see the plan come to fruition in all terms, not just at the initial stage. In that regard, we discussed various concrete actions and measures where individual member states, but also we as a group, could support the further development, especially the further path to peace in the region. We highlighted a couple of concrete measures, among which is the preparation of the Security Council resolution by asking for immediate immediate initiation of the stabilization force and defining the clear mandate for such a security force that would ensure that the agreement is fully respected. We also call for immediate release of all the humanitarian aid to flow to Gaza. There is absolutely no excuse for anyone to block such a humanitarian aid, and we fully expect the Israeli government to release the Rafah, but also other cross-border points in order for the humanitarian aid to flow to Gaza. And finally, we believe that if we are able to put our people on the ground in Gaza, specifically reporters, that would be absolutely the best possible way to guarantee that the agreement is fully respected by all sides and not just by perhaps one or two. Having said that, we were also able to come up with two documents. First, a joint declaration on the European matters, and second, on the joint statement with the King of Jordan on the developments in the Middle East. It is always a pleasure to host a group of friends, a group of like-minded countries, and today's discussions show that when you are among the friends, good things can happen. So thank you all again for coming, and looking forward for next joint steps.
Najlepša hvala. Sedaj bodo voditelji odgovorili na vprašanja. K besedi vabim predstavnika francoskih medijev, ki bo vprašanje zastavil predsedniku Francoske republike.
Bonjour à tous, bonjour Monsieur le Président, c'est la Bougriou pour TF1 LCI. Vladimir Poutine et Donald Trump devraient se rencontrer ces prochains jours à Budapest. Regrettez-vous que cela se fasse dans un pays de l'Union européenne? Qu'attendez-vous du président américain? Faut-il qu'il invite Volodymyr Zelensky, qui s'est dit prêt à y aller si c'était le cas? Et est-ce le moment pour le président ukrainien de faire des concessions aujourd'hui sur le plan territorial? Par ailleurs, on a appris cet après-midi que vous aviez reçu Nicolas Sarkozy avant son incarcération. Était-ce une marque de soutien? Était-ce votre rôle? Et surtout, comprenez-vous que cela puisse troubler ceux qui font la justice dans notre pays? Enfin, dernière chose, et pardonnez le fait que je sois un peu longue, au Louvre, le musée du Louvre a été la cible d'un braquage spectaculaire hier. Votre ministre de la Justice dit ce matin « Nous avons failli ». Êtes-vous d'accord avec cette affirmation? Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Pour le Louvre, je me suis exprimé hier soir, j'ai dit mon soutien, ma détermination. J'aurai l'occasion de revenir sur ce sujet quand je serai sur le territoire français. Sur Nicolas Sarkozy, j'ai eu des propos publics toujours très clairs sur l'indépendance de l'autorité judiciaire, dans le rôle qui est le mien, mais il était normal que, sur le plan humain, je reçoive un de mes prédécesseurs dans ce contexte. Sur la rencontre entre le président Trump et le président Poutine, je pense que c'est une très bonne chose que les présidents puissent se rencontrer pour discuter de leur agenda bilatéral. À partir du moment où ils discuteraient de sort de l'Ukraine, les Ukrainiens devraient être autour de la table. À partir du moment où ils devraient discuter de ce qui impacte la sécurité des Européens, les Européens devraient être autour de la table. C'est tout ce que je peux dire. Quant à nous, nous continuons à avancer aux côtés de l'Ukraine, qui résiste vaillamment. Je crois qu'il ne faut céder à aucune des informations du moment. L'Ukraine continue de résister avec beaucoup de bravoure, en continuant à innover, à produire. Et nous aurons vendredi une coalition des volontaires qui se tiendra, qui sera pour partie physique, pour partie virtuelle, mais qui nous réunira pour quelques-uns d'entre nous à Londres. Et le président Zelensky sera là. Et donc nous continuons d'avancer. La seule paix qui peut exister, c'est une paix robuste, durable, qui permet de répondre aux exigences du droit international et qui crée les conditions de sa stabilité. Nul autre n'existe, et les Européens ont toujours été clairs sur ce sujet.
Najlepša hvala. Vprašanje za predsednika Republike Cipr strani Slovenske tiskovne agencije.
Thank you. Now STA for the
good afternoon.
Of
I would just like to ask, so Cyprus will be
government.
the next country to take over the rotating presidency of the EU Council. What will be the priorities of Cyprus during the presidency, and will the Mediterranean be among them? Thank you.
Let me start by thanking Robert for his hospitality and for Slovenia's able leadership as MED9 presidency this year. Our meeting today and our overall coordination as Mediterranean states of the European Union is extremely valuable for my country, since in just 71 days Cyprus will assume the presidency of the Council of the European Union. And as the member state of the Union at the southeastern frontier, we are preparing to take this responsibility with full awareness of the challenges ahead and with a clear commitment to advance unity, reinforce our collective resilience, and elevate the Mediterranean's voice in the European debate. It is undeniable that the security and prosperity of the Mediterranean is directly linked to that of the European Union. And an example of this is the situation in the Middle East, which is, of course, part of the Mediterranean and which directly affects developments in Europe in terms of security, in terms of migration, energy prices, and so on. Last week, as it was mentioned before by Robert, last week in Egypt, we have been witnessing the unfolding of an opportunity for peace, and we really hope, and we don't underestimate the challenges ahead of us, we really hope that it will lead to a new era of stability and prosperity, not only for Palestinians and Israelis, but also for the wider region. Cyprus, as the member state of the European Union closest to Gaza, stands ready, as we did in the past, to contribute in a number of ways, which have been discussed also today with my colleagues. Coming now back to the presidency, and in line with what I just mentioned about the importance of the Mediterranean region for Europe, Cyprus will place the implementation of the new Pact for the Mediterranean at the core of its priorities. This pact marks a historic, positive step forward. It is a chance to reinvigorate our relations with southern neighborhood, with tangible projects that promote connectivity, sustainability, and regional stability. In the same context, we also plan to host a meeting of heads of states and government in Cyprus in the framework of an informal European Council on April 23rd and 24th, bringing together the EU member states, European Union institutions, and the leaders of the countries of our region. During the presidency, we will also prioritize key issues that are high on the European Union agenda, and at the same time are of particular interest to Mediterranean countries. Such an example is migration. As you know, during our presidency, we'll host a ministerial meeting on the implementation of the Pact for Migration and Asylum, and at the same time, we must invest in partnership with countries of origin and transit, addressing the root causes, combating smuggling networks, and opening legal pathways that match labor market needs. At the same time, preparing for and responding to climate change and natural disasters will be another area of focus during our presidency. Our region is affected by wildfires almost every year, as well as desertification. And in this framework, we very much welcome the announcement of the President of the Commission for the establishment of a regional, European regional firefighting hub based in Cyprus to also serve regional partners as a concrete example of Euro-Mediterranean cooperation. We need tangible results. We need to move from declarations to action. We need to enhance the footprint of European Union in the greater Middle East, in the Mediterranean and the greater Middle East. Thanks.
Najlepša hvala. Sedaj prosim za vprašanje za predsednika vlade Republike Hrvaške.
Croatian television for Croatian Prime Minister. So in these challenging times, we have a fragile ceasefire in the Middle East and a war in Ukraine which has no end in sight. And Croatia is taking over the MED9 presidency next year. So which message will Croatia send? And can the Mediterranean have a unified voice in topics where the EU sometimes struggles?
Thank you very much. First of all, good afternoon, and my sincere gratitude to Robert Golob, Slovenian Prime Minister, for having organized this MED9 summit, and also for the Slovenian presidency over the past 12 months. This was indeed an opportunity for us to go in depth of the cooperation of the 9 EU member states that are on the shores of the Mediterranean, not only vis-à-vis the key political issues, and that is especially now the security and the President Trump's plan for the peace in Gaza, but also the other elements that are also part of the Croatian preparations for the MED9 presidency. Croatia sees itself as a gateway for the Mediterranean to Central Europe. That's why we should promote more secure, more sustainable and more resilient Mediterranean within our presidency. And I would like to connect it with another chairmanship that we have at the same time. That is the 3 Seas initiative, connecting the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea and the Adriatic Sea, that perfectly fits actually and coincides in the course of 2026. When you asked the key opinion of all of us regarding the ceasefire, the common understanding was that we know it is a very noble attempt to stop the war. We hope that it stays, and in order for it to stay, we need a concerted effort of the international community, and especially the mandate to be given to the International Stabilization Force in Gaza by the Security Council. And therefore it will have to be a contribution of all the regional actors, especially the Arab states, but also from the European Union and many other partners. When it comes to Ukraine, just a small point, the position of Croatia has been all along that we need a peace, but it needs to be a just peace. Peace that will enable the respect for the international law and the territorial integrity. Unless that is kept as a main line of us as democracies, we shall be looking, whether we like it or not, for other similar situations where the stronger party, the aggressor, will wish to take territory also of other countries. That's why the attempts for peace are most welcome, but not any peace that will create negative precedents. Thank you.
Najlepša hvala. Sledi vprašanje za predsednika vlade Španije.
Thank you. Question for the Prime Minister of Spain.
Gracias, buenas tardes, presidente. Respecto a Gaza, después de participar la semana pasada en Egipto en la ceremonia de firma de la paz, ¿qué análisis hace de la situación actual tras la violación del alto el fuego?
What will happen then with regard to the ceasefire? Do you think that the responsibility for what's happening is on one side or the other? Turning to other matters that you have been dealing with at this meeting, climate change and competitiveness, have you been able to bring up your proposal about changing, about putting a stop to the change in time when it's winter or summertime, that bi-yearly change in the clock? Do you think you will get sufficient support for the climate emergency funding will be considered to be a part of the budget, despite the fact that there is reluctance there? Let me talk about your first question. I think no matter what has happened or where the responsibility lies, it is important to go back to that position when that ceasefire was signed, so that we can, of course, move forward with all of the points in that agreement to be able to get that lasting and just peace in the Middle East. We would like the ceasefire to be respected, to hold, and also there should be entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. It is not yet guaranteed as it should be. And lastly, we want to make sure that we move towards that peaceful solution between Palestine and Israel, the two states. And as you've said yourself, we have put forward a proposal. It is the Environment and Energy Council that is looking at that proposal to end twice-yearly clock changes. And I believe there are a number of arguments that would vouch for that proposal. There's also a 2019 resolution from the European Parliament, which should be, of course, met and implemented. And all of the scientific studies, and as well as the population, 84%, I think, believe, of all of the population in the European Union is in favor of this. And then, as I said, scientific studies, more than 40 studies, have demonstrated that there is no no sufficient energy saving here that would justify a measure like this. So no matter which kind of seasonal time you would like, the idea is to put an end to it because of science and because of the support, and of course the European Parliament also supported this back in 2019. The last question. Look, I think the government of Spain has been absolutely clear on this. The argument that we have put forward about the euros, about the 2%, the GDP spending on defence, we are saying that 13% should be earmarked for everything to do with the climate emergency and civil protection, because adaptation policies have to address floods and the effects of climate change on the territory, the effects of the climate emergency. So going beyond your question here, I would say that Spain is absolutely clear on this point, that some of these policies should be covered as policies linked to security and defence, and that is what the government believes, and I think it's in agreement with the EU and NATO.
Thank you very much. And now a question for the President.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister Mitsotakis. The MED9 has become a platform for concrete cooperation among the countries of the European South on energy, migration, and more recently, defense and security. So how do you see these schemes of cooperation evolving in the current geopolitical context? And more specifically, what role should Europe's southern borders and the Mediterranean as a whole play in strengthening in EU's collective defense and strategic autonomy? Thank you, Prime Minister.
First of all, let me also thank Robert for the excellent hospitality. Let me answer your question, first of all, regarding the cooperation on topics related to energy, which is an area of great concern to all of us because it is directly related to the competitiveness of the European economy. I think there's a general understanding that we need to move faster in terms of building a common European energy market, that we are still faced, especially the countries of Southeastern Europe, with the prices that are significantly higher than those that our other member states are actually paying, and that a greater integration of the energy markets through significant investments in interconnections and grids needs to be at the top of our priority when it comes to our common European energy strategy. We also had interesting discussions regarding decarbonization in preparation of the European Council that will take place in a few days from now. And I do sense that there is a general understanding amongst the 9 of us that we need to balance the decarbonization goals, the ambitious decarbonization goals that we have set, with an equal emphasis on social cohesion and competitiveness, and that we would require a greater flexibility in terms of attaining the ambitious targets that we have set as a European Union. Now, on the question of defense, this is a topic that we also touched upon at the recent European Council. Of course, right now, the priority of the European Union is rightly directed towards the war in Ukraine. But I think we all advocate for a 360-degree perspective when it comes to European defense. And when we think in terms of the new projects of common interest that we consider promoting as a European Union, be it a drone wall or an anti-missile shield, we need to be aware of the fact that future threats may not necessarily come from the east, but also from the south. So I think we are totally united in ensuring that the entirety of the European borders are equally protected, and that any new European capacity protects all member states, especially those that are sitting on the external borders of the European Union.
Najlepša hvala. Prosim za vprašanje za predsednika vlade Republike Malte.
Prime Minister of the Republic of Malta.
Television Malta for the Maltese Prime Minister. Good afternoon. Today I had the opportunity to discuss important topics on the EU's agenda, such as competitiveness, security and defense, and resilience. We are also a few days away from an important European Council meeting that is happening in Brussels, where discussions will naturally continue. So what role does the Mediterranean and the MED9 group play in this? And how can this translate into tangible benefits for the citizens and businesses across the region?
Thank you for your question. Thank you, Robert, for hosting us here and for your kind hospitality in your wonderful country. At the end of the day, it's all about the economy and how the economy and the healthy economy manages to transform itself into the bettering of people's lives. And that's why we're all about here, why we are here, to focus on the betterment of our economies and the betterment of our people's lives. A key issue when it comes to building a healthy economy lies in boosting its competitiveness. When it comes to us as island member states, I come from an island member state of the European Union in the southern part of the Mediterranean, not connected to the mainland, and connectivity assumes even more paramount importance, particularly when it comes to connections by sea. And that is why today I have discussed with my colleagues the importance of keeping the maritime sector within the European Union and within the Mediterranean healthy and not losing our competitiveness through overambitious climatic targets to our direct competitors. Of course, I'm all for the Green Deal, I'm all for reaching our ambitious climatic targets, but not at the expense of our economies, not by burdening our peoples or our businesses, but rather by getting their buy-in and motivating them to reach those targets in a fair way. That is why, following last week's vote at the IMO level, where the decision on the merits of that decision have now been postponed by a year, I now think that also at European Union level we have to reassess our position on maritime ETS and how that decision that we had taken months ago will affect our competitiveness in this crucial sector. The second point, energy. As mentioned by Kyriakos, we experience, our countries in the southern part of the Mediterranean, higher energy prices. That is why, as a country, we have had to compensate for that structural disability or structural deficiency by giving subsidies to our people to compensate for that inequality. And then again, I call for the completion of the energy union. Us, as Malta, do not have a connection to the gas grid. That is something which is almost unbelievable to hear, and that is why we are pushing also to have a gas interconnection. On the Middle East, I would like to mention a point on the Middle East. First of all, thanking the King of Jordan for today's important discussion and for his role in stabilizing what is otherwise a very unstable region. A few days ago, in New York, we took the decision to recognize Palestinian statehood, following what we have seen when we have hosted so many young children in our islands to give them the best of medical care. We have seen Palestinian children from Gaza, from the West Bank, who should have been enjoying the best part of their youth, coming to us with disabilities, having lost their families, having lost their brothers, their sisters, having lost everything that they have in life. And I think following the peace plan, I would be cautiously optimistic now. Obviously, the difficulties are still there, but we need to be united. And I think today's discussion showed a group of 9 leaders, definitely more united than they were in these last months. And I think that at European Union level, at next week's Council meeting in Brussels, we have to be more vociferous, more decisive, more in a leading position, just like we are in Ukraine and Russia. And I think we have to be decisive in the taking of the right decisions. I think we have done quite a lot, but much more remains to be done to end this humanitarian crisis. I think we have to be more decisive and more forceful in our decisions when it comes to humanitarian aid being allowed to flow freely into Gaza. Unfortunately, we have witnessed tens of thousands of innocent lives being lost. This was in 2024, 2023, 2025, not tens of years ago. And I think people living in today's world do not merit this. And we have two choices, either to remain complacent, either to let others take decisions for us, or to be at the leading role. And I think that today we have taken a decision that, notwithstanding our different perspectives, that we have to be united in one common area. And I think that is that humanitarian aid should be allowed to flow freely into Gaza. The same goes food, water, medicinal aid, and anything that can better people's lives. We have seen too many atrocities. I will go back to my personal experiences from the children that we have cured and given a better life in Malta. I think we deserve a better world, and I am happy that today's discussion will lead to the bettering also of those people's lives. Thank you.
Najlepša hvala. Prosim za vprašanje za predsednika vlade Portugalske republike.
Boa tarde, Sr. Primeiro-Ministro. Com a atual proposta de orçamento europeu muito assente na competitividade e a pressão sobre a imigração, não há o risco de a coesão económica e social deixar de ser o cimento político da União Europeia? Já agora, como é que responde às críticas da lei que proíbe a burca em Portugal, dela ser inconstitucional e atentatória da liberdade religiosa?
And what about the burqa that was vetted in Portugal and also on the seasonal hour? Do you agree? Well, thank you very much to Robert and Slovenia to welcome us and to greet Croatia that will hold the presidency next year, and also thank you for the confidence of all the colleagues for us to hold the coordination and presidency of this MED group in 2027. The question is about Europe is facing a challenge. We need more wealth to have this social cohesion as a glue, as a cement, and to answer to the wishes of its citizens. We have to take over also our plan in security and defense. We have to fight for this climate change and all these issues. So we need more wealth, and we cannot lose more time. That means we have to reach all the goals we have, but we are lagging behind. And once again here during this meeting it was said we need to allocate more public budget to the European investments in several domains, but also we need to mobilize private resources. That means that we really need a savings union and investments. We need a single market of capitals and mobilize all the resources in Europe, use them in Europe and not lose them or allow them to leave. So that means we need simple rules. We have a process which is ongoing but must be implemented by the Commission and the Member States and the European Parliament. That means simplification. That means alleviate burdens and also to work commonly, as it was said by my colleagues, namely in the field of energy, because the prices of energy are bottlenecks for the European economy. Dependency, we are less competitive, we don't have market shares, we have not the ability to affirm ourselves in the market. So we need to be more competitive in the energy sector, and we also have the ability to produce green energy. For that, we cannot lose more time to implement projects in the interconnectivity and also between other areas like the connection to Northern Africa. And another thing which is very important for social and economic cohesion, migrations, which is connected to competitiveness. We need human resources, we need workforce, but we only will be able to allocate resources to our economy if we have legal and regular migrations, if we are able to integrate properly and give hope to those that look for Europe to work. Because illegal migration must have a consequence going back. That means combat mafias, the illegal trafficking, human trafficking. So we, as countries in the South, we believe it is important to implement the rules on immigration because this will lead to more competitiveness and absorption in our labor markets for the workforce we need. With the consequences that must be implemented for those that breach those rules. I would say that, and just to finalize the answer, we talked about the multi-annual financial framework and the debates from now on, and about the southern countries and the maintenance of political policies, CAP and cohesion policies, because this MFF opens new doors in defense competitiveness, but all the countries must have access to these mechanisms, because we must deliver, but to deliver we must have all the same opportunities, and the countries, the southern countries must claim for their opportunities, for the big companies of the SMEs. We cannot allow that
possam asfixiar o desenvolvimento das pequenas e médias empresas que são o suporte básico da organização económica do nosso continente. Uma última nota para lhe dizer sobre as perguntas que coloca mais do ponto de vista interno. Tenho uma opinião muito clara relativamente ao processo legislativo que corre na Assembleia da República. Se fosse deputado na Assembleia da República de Portugal, teria votado a favor a proposta de legislação que está hoje em curso, que proíbe a utilização de meios pelos quais as pessoas podem andar com a cara tapada em espaços públicos, seja a utilização de burcas ou outras formas de tapar o rosto dos cidadãos, por uma questão de respeito pelos direitos de todos. O direito de liberdade de uma pessoa acaba quando esse direito coloca em causa os direitos das outras pessoas, nomeadamente o direito à segurança e à percepção de segurança dos outros. Não tenho dúvidas quanto a isso, não vale a pena andarmos com grandes discussões filosóficas sobre aquilo que é uma concepção de vida tranquila entre todos aqueles que compõem a nossa comunidade. Pode agora o Parlamento aprofundar e escolher a opção legislativa em concreto, com as suas exceções, com as suas modulações, mas o princípio é o princípio correto, no qual eu me revejo. E, portanto, faço votos para que o processo legislativo se encerre. Quanto à última questão, relativamente à matéria horária, é uma matéria para a qual temos disponibilidade para aprofundar o seu conhecimento. Não foi hoje ainda o caso para isso, mas não teremos outras oportunidades para tomarmos a decisão correta.
Najlepša hvala. Prosim še za vprašanje za ministra za zunanje zadeve Italijanske republike.
Thank you. Now question for the foreign minister of the Italian Republic.
A fronte di una pace fragile in Medio Oriente, di fronte a Israele che ha nuovamente chiuso i corridoi umanitari, l'Italia in che modo
Israel has closed the humanitarian corridors. How do you think these corridors will be reopened? Italy has been penalized, maybe more than other countries, in providing humanitarian assistance. Now, thank you for your question. I want to thank Prime Minister Robert Golob for his hospitality in this beautiful village of Portorož. We feel at home here. And at the same time, I wish to welcome all Italian-speaking Slovenian citizens. And when I go back to Italy, I will certainly send my greetings to the Slovene-speaking Italians. And my best wishes to Andrei, Prime Minister of Croatia, who will have the presidency of this group. And again, Italians in Croatia, Italian-speaking population can use Italian in Croatia just as Croatians in Italy can use their language. What does this mean? After what seemed to be a fracture after the Second War, today Italy, Slovenia and Croatia work together. We sign documents together, we work hand in hand thanks to the European Union. When we want peace, peace can be achieved. What seemed to be unsurmountable fractures were overcome, and now we are friends. And I think the same holds true for Palestine and Israel. But we have to commit ourselves, and we Italians are doing everything we can to implement all aspects, all components of the peace plan put forward by the US. We also participate in the reconstruction meeting that will be held in Egypt, which we also contribute to organize. As for humanitarian assistance, today there is a mission of our Foreign Affairs Ministry. Our mission is in Ramallah to study all possible initiatives that will be implemented there to help civilians both in Gaza and in the Gaza Strip, and the same will take place for the West Bank. We will also work with Jordan to help the civilians in the area with the help of our civil protection services. The first thing we need is humanitarian assistance. Over the next few days, we will have more relief supplies sent there thanks to the maritime corridor that Cyprus has created. We have already sent 2,500 tons of relief supplies. The first emergency has to do with food, and then we will have to work to create the future Palestine. On Thursday, the Minister for University and Research, Mrs. Bernini, will be in Amman to accompany 150 Palestinian students coming to Italy. They are going to be trained and study in Italy, and they will become the new ruling class of Palestine. So we continue to work based on these projects so as to alleviate the suffering of the civilian population there through what we have called university corridors. We will also treat children in our hospitals, and their families will travel with them. Italy, together with other countries and other Muslim countries, has welcomed the highest number of refugees from Palestine, and especially from Gaza. And we will treat these young children. We will also involve the private hospitals, not just public ones. And we will continue to work with Italian hospitals in Jordan and Egypt. It's going to be 360 commitment for Italy. I think we all have to fight for peace. We have put forward a resolution at the United Nations on the Olympic truce for the Olympic Winter Games in Milano Cortina that we will host next year. We want to convey a message of peace, and we hope we can rely on the support of all countries for this important peace initiative. And I think this is a message. We start with a truce, and then we move on towards peace, not just in the Middle East, but also in Ukraine and in Sudan. We don't talk a lot about Sudan, but we have humanitarian tragedies there as well. I think we can all work together. The fact that there are so many European countries countries here willing to convey a message of peace means that we can achieve peace. This is what we did after the Second World War, after so many years of fighting, and I believe that thanks to our new strategy for the Middle East, we will finally be able to have a peace, and we will finally be able to defend those who support wars and conflicts. Of course, we will have to work for stabilizations, because you have to reconstruct. You can reconstruct a country without stabilizations. We've already said, I was talking to the President of the Commission today, we are ready to send other Carabinieri armed forces at the crossing border of Rafah to contribute to monitor that border crossing connecting the area with Egypt. If necessary, we will also send other Carabinieri in Jericho to train the armed forces and the police forces of the Palestinian National Authority. If there's going to be a peacekeeping force there under the aegis of the United Nations, we are ready to do our utmost and to participate. But it depends on the United Nations, and for us, however, the peace in the Middle East is a priority. We hope to be heard. We hope that everyone will copy what Italy, Slovenia and Croatia did in the past. Thank you.
Dobar dan, gospod predsednik vlade. Omenili ste pomen medijskega poročanja iz Gaze. Ali ste danes razpravljali o konkretnih korakih, kako medije znova spraviti v Gazo, in ali boste o tem govorili tudi z drugimi vodilnimi evropskimi voditelji? Ter še vprašanje na Zahodni breg, kako članice MED9 komentirate izraelske kršitve mednarodnega prava in resolucij OZN na Zahodnem bregu? Hvala lepa.
Law and UN resolutions.
Danes je bilo na to temo dosti razprave.
A lot has been said on this today. We still don't have any specific conclusion, but what we all agree on is that we have to act through the United Nations. This is the best possible channel. A resolution is being prepared, and it will include the security aspect in particular. This is prerequisite for reporters to find a way to go back to Gaza. I think that in the next days and weeks we'll have to work with all allies, including the US, so that this sort of resolution that will support American President's peace plan, so that it is also voted, and so that we will then be able to say that international forces can finally enter Gaza. Until that happens, it will not be secure for the media to go to Gaza. So the sequence should be very clear, and I believe the United Nations are the right path. This concludes the press conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.